Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Getting to Know Our Heavenly Family. So this is Sister Mary Rose here to talk about St. Paul Miki and his companions. Today is the memorial of St. Paul Miki, who was a Japanese Jesuit brother. So he's the first Japanese religious to be martyred. He and along with 24 other companions were crucified in Japan. The initial growth of Christianity after Francis Xavier's 1549 arrival in Japan led to opposition from Japanese leaders who feared that the introduction of Christianity was the first step in Spain's effort to conquer their country, just as the Spanish had already conquered the Philippines. Japan's ruler, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, banished all foreign ministers in 1587. But the decree was not rigidly implemented, and Jesuits were able to continue their work under the threat of persecution. Remarks made in 1596 by the captain of a shipwrecked Spanish ship led Hideyoshi to order the arrest of all Franciscans who had come to Japan from the Philippines 3 years earlier. Along with the Franciscans, police arrested the Jesuits Paul Miki, a scholastic, and James Kisai, a brother, and John de Goto, a catechist who was in the process of entering the society. Miki came from an affluent family near Osaka and became a Christian when his whole family was converted. He entered the Jesuit-run seminary in Azuki when he was 20, and then joined the society 2 years later. He was an eloquent speaker who was very successful in drawing Buddhists to Christian faith. He was only a few months from being ordained when he was arrested. De Goto, Kisai, and Miki were arrested on December 9th and then taken to Miyako, today's Kyoto, where they were imprisoned along with 6 Franciscans and 15 tertiaries. The 24 prisoners were taken into the public square and condemned to be executed by crucifixion. As a mark of shame, the lobe of each man's left ear was cut off before they were led away. The prisoners left the following day for a month-long walk to Nagasaki, where they would be killed. Along the way, people insulted and mocked them, but Miki and a Franciscan priest preached to the crowds anyway. Just before they reached Nagasaki, 2 Jesuit priests were able to minister to the prisoners. One of them, Father Pisayo, took the 3 young Jesuits into the chapel, where Paul Miki renewed his vows, and John de Goto and James Kisai pronounced their first vows. That same morning, the prisoners were taken to a hill outside the city where they saw crosses lying on the ground waiting for them. They sang a Te Deum, the traditional song of thanksgiving, when they saw how they were to die. Then they allowed the executioners to tie them onto the crosses and fasten metal bounds around their necks so they would keep their heads erect. The crosses were lifted up and dropped into holes in the ground. De Goto's father was in the crowd and heard Paul Miki preach to the people, inviting them to conversion. Finally, soldiers pierced each prisoner's chest with a lance. The hill on which they died became known as Martyrs' Hill. And we ask that Saints Paul Miki and his companions would be an inspiration to each one of us as we face the challenges that we have in our world today. And we pray in particular for all those who are suffering persecution, particularly for their faith. So we pray St. Paul Miki and companions,